We're here with the chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and you're on to politics with KO. Nigerians in the diaspora, they're really concerned about the situation in Nigeria, especially as it relates to electricity supply. Has anything improved?
A lot has improved. You know, one of the most difficult things to do for me is to tell people what has improved or not improved, because they will still be using the old metrics of how many hours is that many outage, or what the generation megawatt per megawatt. So if you look at those old metrics, you will say, yes, this has improved, but not that much. If we have moved from 3,000 to 3,800 or 4,200 or 4,500 maximum, it's still just like from the ground to just a molehill, you know, just not much. But if you look at this drastic change in the market structure, before now, there was no single project finance power plant in Nigeria, which means that investors, whether hedge fund managers and private equity firms or international financial institutions, were not interested in investing in power production. And what that means for us is permanent stagnation, because public finance is totally inadequate to generate the kind of megawatts. But since 2012, for example, when we had the multi-year tariff order framework, just 2 months ago, we had the first project finance, $900 million, 500 megawatts at Edo State, which is Edo State and a private company called Azura Power. Now, what's significant about that is that this is all international financing from a menu of investors, some institutional, some private, and banks. So what this means for us, actually, one word, is that we have assurance of continuous increase in capacity. We've got a market structure that attracts investment and gives confidence. Now, by February 1st, we entered into the transmission electricity market, which is epocha in the sense that today, all transactions in the market are by contracts. The government is not called upon to bail out anybody or to provide any support. So, which now means that the Nigerian market is now reliable and such that you can now bank on continuous capacity growth.
Since I arrived in the country, I know there's been a lot of complaint in the telecommunication sector about regulators not being able to put pressure on operators. And people are frustrated. In the energy sector, would you say you are able to play that role as a regulator? You have private companies now providing electricity supply.
Absolutely. Regulation is a strategic game. What that means is that you want to get some outcome. And essentially, the whole strategic objective of the reform in the electricity sector is just one: to ensure reliable and adequate electricity through private participation that is able to increase both financing and efficiency. So what we did by privatization was to get to the strongest, the most valuable chain in this value chain is the distribution company. They have to serve the consumers and they have to raise the money to pay upstream for generators and gas suppliers. So our approach to regulation is participatory and more pragmatic. We want to build the industry. I've always said that the fundamental right of the Nigerian citizens is to have power. And that means that whatever would make them have power is more important, strategically important, than any other thing. That means we need to finance capacity growth. This is a country that has only 2,000 megawatts as a 2,000. That is for a population of then 150 or 160 million people. Now, if you look at the industrial needs we have, the demand for industry, that's huge. So the primary thing for us is to create a market that first attracts investment. And in doing that, keep an eye on corporate governance. So what we've done is to make sure that the distribution companies, all the licensees have rules and they play by the rules. I must say that sometimes consumers complain about tariff increase and all that. It's not like we are giving operators windfall profit. It's just that if there's no cost recovery, there will be no investment, that consumers will need to have more power. So some people may take the view that NEG should come down stronger on the discos and operators, but we take a balanced view.
Quite a number of people do say prepaid meters system is a better system than just people bringing bills. Now, there are difficulties in people getting prepaid meters. As a regulator, are you getting complaints? Have you been able to...
We are getting complaints. And what we've done is that initially, before the new owners came on, the metering gap in Nigeria was over 60%, which means in the last 20 years of NEPA, effectively, there were no metering. So those backlogs has implication for financing. The new owners, first and foremost, you have to procure the meters, pay for the meters, and then install them. So in 2012, when we did the new tariff, we benchmarked the discos then under government to provide meter. 6 months after, they could not, and we asked them, they said, well, they have to pay for increased labor. For example, government negotiated with electricity workers for a 550% increase in their salary. And so, for example, a division company like Abuja moved from 400 million naira salary to 800 million. That's what we brought the CAPME. CAPME is customer credited metering plan. That what that means that we say, okay, customers who want to exit this queue before the meter comes can pay for the meter and then get rebated for within 2 years. That means they pay you the money you paid plus interest at ongoing bank rate. Now, that has made us, consumers have been able to quickly provide financing for their own meter. But ultimately now, we've mandated the discos to provide meter. We did a cross-country public hearing where consumers who paid for meters and were not metered, or those who have not paid, brought their complaint. And now we have written to all the discos to now have clear metering plan and implement them. Consumers also have also to us, and we have asked them to meter them. So the metering plan, really, two things. One, it's going to take time because the legacy gap is huge. Secondly, NEG understands that if you don't have prepaid meter, if you're not metered well, on two levels, the discos lose money. There is a high level of energy theft and bypassing. So if they are metered, the consumer, they can have guarantee of the revenue. At the same time, the consumers are also going to have certainty as how much they are paying, and they can better control their own consumption.
There's been talks that those who make supply of electricity impossible are those who supply generators and other means of electricity supply. Would you think a ban on the importation of generators would help maybe Nigeria think seriously? If you don't have a generator to operate, then we'll think seriously about...
I have two answers. One is that I'm on experience, there is no merit to the argument of sabotage by generator producers. What has happened in Nigeria historically is lack of plan and strategic thinking. We've not approached our infrastructure, not just electricity. It's just because it hits us home. Think about hospital, think about stadium, think about playground. For the past 50 years, we've not approached infrastructure development as a strategic objective project, and we've not put quality thinking. We've politicized the process. Take, for example, by now we should be talking about over 7,000 megawatts. If our passengers NIPP was depoliticized and we took those power plants to where there was gas. For the past 5-6 years, we've not been able to convert gas and power electricity. In Europe, in London, you have one regulator dealing with us. We have a disarticulated framework. The roadmap of 2010 tried to articulate it, and now we're going through the process of gradually doing that. And of course, we made some mistakes. So what I think is that clearly, the generator importers are exploiting the lack of proper strategic planning and implementation. Two, I can support that all those who have business with power should not get involved in having their own generator. What that does is that it can simulate commitment. It puts people so that they can focus on working 24/7 to generate power. But apart from that, so you have a skin in the game. If I go to my house and there's no light and there's no generator, then the darkness will force me perhaps to think more strategic. Like they say, this is the mode of invention. Apart from making everybody have a skin in the game, in the sense that we know that this is not just theory. This is about whether we ourselves be in darkness. I mean, if we can afford a generator, we don't seem to have the full impact of the fact that this is an economy in darkness.
How transparent, in your opinion, is the way the privatization was handled? I mean, when I check the list of those who are now providing us electricity, we have more of politicians. I know you don't want to get involved.
Sure, no, I will.
Well, how come it's the same people who failed, to provide us with leadership in terms of electricity supply that are now in charge?
Well, I think, let me put it this way. In terms of structure, framework, this was very transparent, and all the foreign observers said so. Because the rules were kept. For example, I'll give an example. What has happened before? Dangote came in with 5 minutes late with the bid. It was rejected. That's transparency.
Oh, he did bid for it?
Yes, he bid
and he didn't get it?
Yeah, they didn't even accept the bid because he came in late.
Wow.
Good. So in terms of rules and processes, it was transparent. Those who won, I give an example, Enugu Disco was Emeka for won Enugu Disco through his own platform, his SPV, a company. But now, we know now that if you look at the way they have survived the interim period, you said they had a better plan, and each of the discos were evaluated on net positive value. So the whole idea is this: I cannot raise a company, I don't have that network. So obviously, in an economy that people who are politically connected have more access to resources, these same people will be the ones who can put up a winning bid. They have to hire the PwCs of this world, they have to have the Accenture and other top consulting firms. They can have access to calling technical partners from Malaysia, Indonesia, and Germany. So the way I tell people is this: NEC as a regulator, we are agnostic of who won, who didn't win. And if you look at today's economy, where capital can take other forms, people can leverage on financing through a framework, through a different name, through all kinds of processes. Our job is to make whoever won plays by the rule. And when we did audit, and we said they should pay government billions of naira, they didn't have anybody from Villa. I said, don't do that. For us, the critical thing is we came up with our rules for fit and proper person. Make sure you have technical capacity, make sure you have the financial capacity to play in the game. My only regret is that if I was BPP, we probably would have raised the threshold higher.
If I go to my village now and my mom, I say 10,000 megawatts, 5,000 megawatts, she doesn't understand that. So Dr. Amadi, in terms of how many hours a day are Nigerians expected to have electricity, you know, uninterrupted, 6 hours a day, 3 hours a day, how do we foresee the next 3 to 4 years?
I think Nigeria should be ambitious based on the reforms we have carried out in the market structure. We should now expect Nigerians in the next 2 or 3 years to have at least a minimum of, out of 24 hours in a day, you can say at least minimum on average of 14 to 16 hours. But today, some people come to me and say, look, for 1 week I didn't have my light blink. Other people say, for 1 week I had no light. There can be, there's local problem, local challenges. So even if we have 600 megawatts now, there still be some communities in Nigeria who will not have, you know, even reasonable hours of electricity. Why? Because they have local problems, substation is down, transformer is burnt, lines are tripped. So what we need to do at this stage is, we need innovative way of building capacity. For example, what I just want to launch next week or next 2 weeks is a policy of industrial cluster. We say, look, why can't we get people in Onitsha, in Lagos, in Agbara Estate, in Ikorodu, all those areas, socialize them, some kind of cooperative, let them come together, set up SPV, generate modular power, some kind of 10, 20 megawatts, sent to the disco within them to serve them exclusively. Now, what that means is that instead of us waiting for we have to build big power plants for the grid, we can use embedded generation, small modular power, scattered across the country to create capacity that, you know, short circuits the cost of transmission, all those, you know, capital costs. And then you develop small solutions that respond to this. So I think that our problem of low capacity can actually help us think outside the box and develop small grid, not just as supplement, but as a way of fully establishing a grid that is based on mini grids.
As a regulator, what challenges do you face? Funding, staffing?
The first challenge we had as a regulator is people to understand who's a regulator. You know, we have succeeded in pushing the envelope far on giving NEC independence. So whatever we do, nobody, I fought hard, I was brutalized, but I got it. But I know that a regulator must be independent to make best evidence-based judgment, sometimes against government interests. So, and I always tell people in government that, look, a regulator is not government. A regulator is that in between government and the market. Because if the market trusted government, they will ask for a regulator. A regulator is the one who protects public interest, because sometimes public interest and government interest or market are not the same. So that's the first thing, establishing why you appointed by government, created by government, would feel that you are independent. Why wouldn't you follow the dictate of the Minister of Power? Why would you tell the minister this is not the right kind of thing to do? So the second challenge is that regulating a scarce product is terrible, it's difficult, because you are the tension between enabling the production and then also protecting end users. could be difficult to balance, because you know that ultimately it should produce, but the process could require you to superintend more intensely how it is produced. And then, so for me, we've taken a strategic approach to say we'll keep our eye on the most important thing is the product, but at the same time, we want to make sure that it's produced in a manner that is sustainable and a manner that protects the rights and the interests of the public.
An activist, you've been in this business of public service now. You tell us what your experience has been, and would you do it again? And then there are communities who by themselves buy transformers, they contribute money together. Are they expected to get refunds from the companies? So
let me start with the last one. Is in the past, because of this collapsed electricity industry, community self-help was ordered, of course, like we had in the other infrastructure. In my village, the primary school that was built by us, hospital by the community. So communities started providing for themselves. Now, in this new market, that's not supposed to. We've not brought investment regulation, which the Commission will actually approve tomorrow. That regulation simply says that if an individual community makes an investment or wants to make an investment in the network, they have to first get approval of the distribution company that's in charge of that jurisdiction, and then they have to agree on repayment. So it could be two things. It's like a financing. We're helping you with your financial obligations. You tell us you will repay you. Or they can now say, look, because you've made this investment, we will rebate your energy consumption, you will not pay. So the idea that companies that are profit-making can just swallow investment by communities and individuals and cannot pay for them are now history. That's one. Secondly, sometimes individuals, because of the scarcity, they are in a hurry to provide themselves these services, and so they just, they just go in and make this investment. What I think, when we made that investment, let them be recorded. Let there be a memorandum of understanding on repayment. Distribution companies are responsible for all the investment in the network, but when individuals or governments or communities support them, there have to be a memorandum of repayment or amortization of those financial, investment. When I got this job, I was wondering what I was going to be doing here. But sitting back today, I think the ultimate work of an activist is actually to engage in regulatory work. Why is this so? This is all about public interest. I sit here every day, people come and say they want either increase or they want that, and I make judgment as to public interest, justice, what is fair. My human rights training under Chief Gadifa and Sabakova helped me. My training as a lawyer, above all as a student activist who understands the larger political economy of poverty, helps me. And I think what has helped me also that when I was a law student at Harvard Law School, I knew I was going to end up in public service, and I decided to go to Kennedy School. And I said, why? Because I want to understand, apart from the activism and the passion for change, you need to understand the mechanism. What creates the problem that the people suffer from? So you must understand the analytical capability to analyze what's the problem. So I can sit back and say, why are people energy? Why is there energy poverty? I can see the root causes, then I can tailor interventions to address them. I can also sit back and, because of also the analytical knowledge of society and injustice, I know that the bottom line for interest groups, powerful ones, is to harness more to themselves. So I can second guess presentations, that I can know how to converge interests of the operators, those who want to make money, and the public. So I think really, working in government, I tell people, I say, look, the reason why activists fail in working in government, two things. One would be lack of capacity. They're not humble enough to learn quick on the skills they need to get the job done. Two would be inadequate ethical commitment. So, it's fashionable to claim to be an activist because maybe you are historically placed to do that role. But then when you now are confronted with corruption, when it came to neck, the first thing I did was to say, we can't fly first class. We were the only agency that publicly said, I said, I can't. You commission if you want, because it's totally against the principle. First class is for royalties. A public servant can't fly first class. And now the other commissioners had no option. If the chairman is not going to fly first class, the other thing I did was to set up a code of, we're the first agency, perhaps the only one that publicly swore to a code of conduct with the Minister of Justice, Minister of Power, and civil society groups. We will say this is our no bribery, no gift above 35,000. Of course, we're not perfectly implementing it, but that's symbolic. We were the first also to fully agreed to the FOI, we made 16 declarations. We said publicly in a ceremony that we commit 100% to freedom of information. And that's why both the House Committee and civil society rated us as #1 in public procurement. If you ask for any document, we'll give you. I believe that we need to be in government to show that these things work. It's totally irresponsible to tell people that they can run an open government and then you don't want to come in and run it. There are casualties, there are things, there are ethics of also what I call the moral of position. For example, I could be, the way I speak, right, it won't be the way I write now. It doesn't mean that you will not be truthful, but you'll be controlled because you are also responsible for institutions. I cannot say things that will drive out investors. So, but I may put them in a certain manner. Sometimes people accuse me, say, look, you are wearing your civil society cap. I think a civil society activist is actually the best person to run a society because he has deep understanding of the intricacies and the dynamics of oppression and the conflicts going on even secretly behind. That's why Obama or this Benoko can do well because they understand really what strategic interests and competitions are going on behind the scenes.